if it's okay with you, maybe we should just go ahead and talk about Kreia. We need to address the Kreia in the room.
We really do. Kreia
influence otherwise.
Kreia is an issue that's not going to go away.
Yeah.
The fans have been screaming for Kreia.
There's no rhyme. I can't think of it. No scream. I scream. She really is the character for a lot of Star Wars fans because she makes you think about it in a new way.
Absolutely.
A completely new way.
Absolutely.
She's not necessarily a good person. Her philosophy is not necessarily a good one, but it's unique. Mm-hmm. And it's very believable in how it was formed once you figure out who she was, and plans to be again.
Right.
If she feels she needs to be that person again.
Right.
It's not exactly an easy character, but what is very interesting is... we've already talked about Kreia quite a bit in the Happy Fun Times run through.
Because you can't not talk about her.
She is such a huge... there's so much about her. In the hero's journey, of course, you have the wise old sage, mm-hmm. traditionally a male wizard. Mm-hmm. Kreia is a woman, and if that would be interesting in and of itself. But she also is not a static character. She is at the end of her own character arc, but you learn so much about her that she's not okay, Gandalf, you know basically who he is when you see him. He's not really. He has the costume shift, but that's about it.
Right.
And Kreia has a costume shift. Spoilers. But she goes through so many life events, both before the game and during. But you always have the sense that she's the same character throughout. And when we talked about Atris, we talked about how when people change their beliefs, they often don't change that much themselves. They're usually the same person.
They adapt.
They've adapted. When someone goes to rehab and they go to a Christian rehab, we probably met people who were big into drugs. They kicked the drug habit, but now they are obsessive Christians. That addictive personality.
Absolutely.
They're the same person. They've changed, but they're the same person there. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of see that in Kreia. Well, not that, but Okay, so when Kreia starts her life, she starts her life the way all Jedi do. Kit Fisto on his... Kit Fisto's been around the entire galaxy. This is canon. He is the professional kidnapper.
As long as there was Kit Fisto.
Kicking in nurseries, scooping them up like hoovering up babies from the maternity ward. Jedi. Oh, no, you can go back. But,
I like that he's also got a dip and chew in his mouth and a Bass Pro Shop. God damn, got 20 Jedi on this last run.
Union mandated breaking 20. You're not force sensitive. We'll sell you on the market for the side. We need the midichlorians, But Kreia, okay, she grows up. She becomes a pretty good Jedi. She's a master. Mm-hmm. A lot like Atris, kind of. Not the same person, but, fought similar life stories. But unlike Atris, even while Kreia was still in the institution, mm-hmm. she becomes kind of that crazy tenured professor who asks the difficult questions that nobody really likes to have asked. She's a little unruly. She questions things, encourages other people to question things, and her students have a nasty habit of turning to the dark side. So naturally, eventually, she gets forced out of the Jedi Order, and
forced
out
of the Jedi Order,
and asked politely but firmly to leave. She went to Hank Hill's barbecue.
She asked for a well-done
steak. We asked her politely but firmly to leave, and it's kind of an interesting question. Okay, the Jedi don't kill their prisoners. You have incredibly powerful people with borderline beliefs, and you force them out of the Order. What exactly do they think is going to happen?
It's always Sith. Yeah. Always. It always happens. No, Sifo-Dyas, he's cool. He's
Yeah,
cool,
that's
man.
true.
He wouldn't turn.
And to Kreia's credit, at first she goes, depending on if you actually buy the theory that Kreia is a Chani just because she has white hair, looks exactly like Handmaiden, and Handmaiden it looks exactly like her mother, and I mean it's not like I'm grasping at straws here, obviously, but she goes home. You know, she hooks up with Usanis. And after a steamy love affair, she has a baby. And, okay, well, I guess there's no way I'm going to the Jedi now.
Right.
And then, you know, she doesn't really have any real involvement with Handmaiden for whatever reason. It's actually interesting because it's very easy to lose Kreia's favor when you're doing good things for other good people because she has that kind of Ayn Rand objectivist viewpoint.
Right.
You have to do these things for yourself. But she's not greedy in that way. She's looking out for number one, but she doesn't seem to have that much malice. It's really... She's like an authentic libertarian. She's not trying to hide anything. She's exactly what she says she is.
She's the only one in the galaxy.
But... like she's a liar, obviously, but occasionally you do. Her voice acting is great. There's one moment where you find out something that could suggest that there is some humanity in her, and you find out things she values as a person that she can't reveal because those emotions are a weakness. There are two lovers who are one of like this guy's wife is being held by the exchange, and he can't get in there to help her. You do that for him. And they have that happy reunion. Everything looks nice. And then Kreia is trying to interject because this is a thing she always does. She has a lesson. Like, she's like, you know, if he had done that himself, their love would have been stronger. If he had said, damn the exchange, and just fought his way through, he would have grown from that. And you robbed him of that chance. But she doesn't lose influence with you. And she's not yelling at you. This is like less you broke a plate mom told you not to use the good china as a frisbee and you did it anyway. That's not what she's doing. This is your mom catches you as a toddler walking towards the road. She stops you and she talks with you because there's a lesson she wants to impart, but you didn't do anything you didn't do anything wrong in her eyes.
Right.
And that's incredibly interesting because it suggests that she has a soft spot for this specific couple. And we know that I know anyway, that she had at least one baby.
Right.
And so there's a person here. We're talking about a person.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, no matter how frigid and ice cold this woman is, she's still a person underneath it all.
Or anyone.
Yeah. And at some point after, in this interim period, Darth Revan, her star pupil, comes back to her. And
I forgot about that. Yeah.
It's kind of, there's a lot of retconning that goes in between KOTOR 2 and, SWTOR.
Yeah.
But Revan comes back because Darth Kreia was the cool professor who asked the questions he wants to know the answers to. And she tells him everything she knows about the nature of the Force that the Jedi don't really want to think about. And he comes to a decision. And the big staple of KOTOR 2 is that it questions whether Darth Revan really fell to the dark side or if he was just using the dark side to gain power, to do something else. Kreia doesn't know exactly. She suspects, but she doesn't have any real idea because he left without her. She had other things going on after Malachor 5, obviously.
Right.
But basically, Kreia's big line, the difference between a fall and a sacrifice is sometimes a strange one. And that actually kind of keys into her character as the betrayer. When she betrays you at the end of the game, she doesn't necessarily want to kill you. She wants you to kill her. You are a part of, she is a part of your life that you need to confront, that you'll never be whole while she's alive.
Oh my God, she's the boss.
Yeah.
From Metal Gear Solid 3.
Pretty much. She's your mother.
There's a ton of similarities between those two characters.
And basically, there is a famous line in a poem that I can't remember the name of, but the line there's a line in that poem that says, "To serve an age, betray it," because a villain defines an age. So if you become the villain that an age needs to define itself as something new. And that's what Kreia becomes. She is the betrayer.
Did. Yeah, I never thought of the similarities between those two characters. It's uncanny. Which game came out first, I wonder? We'll look that up later. But
after she fights in the Mandalorian Wars, and as far as I'm concerned, that's where she dies. That's where she leaves Kreia behind, or Aaron K behind, and just fakes her death. Because after Revan goes off and does his thing, she stays behind on Malachor 5 because
his thing being the Sith Wars.
Yeah, okay. He's planning the Great Crusade of his. And Kreia doesn't really care that much about that because she's found something in Malachor 5, an ancient academy with ancient knowledge, and she's a historian. She's obviously going to go apeshit over that.
Right.
And from that, she learns a lot about the Force, the dark side of the Force, obviously, and she gets consumed by it because at the end of the day, she's still human. And she finds some, lonely Sith Lords meandering in the ruins of Malachor 5. There's Darth Zion. He's had a rough go of it, obviously. Literally being held together by the pain that he's constantly feeling. He'd be a DeviantArt character if he wasn't so damn well written. And Nihilus, who is basically the main character of the game if he had made one tiny decision that... BioWare hates it. I don't know. I can't complete the joke. Basically, while the exile turned away from the Force altogether, he gave into it so much that he took all the power he could to survive, and now he's completely dependent on it. He's a vampire.
Right.
And over time, he loses his humanity. We'll talk about them later. But eventually, Scion and Nihilus both decide that Kreia constantly losing influence over every decision they make and micromanaging their lives is not going to fly. So Nihilus shows up, strips Kreia of her Force powers, and now she's suddenly just a frail old woman. Like, before, she was, reveling in all the power she had. Arguably, she was the most powerful being in the galaxy up until the moment Nihilus nerfed her in that, that very unpopular patch.
Right.
Yeah. And then Scion
2.5, baby.
And then Scion's like, look, I disabled her AI. Look, Mom, I'm winning. And they leave her for dead, and she survives through sheer tenacity. And like the exile, she has to relearn everything about how she functions, but she manages to survive and get out of there and just think, like, okay, I did everything I possibly could to master the light side of the Force, but there was some kind of contradiction, an inherent contradiction that I could not solve within the confines of the Jedi Order. So I sought out the dark side, and I gained incredible power. But no matter how much power I gained, it was never enough. And you see this kind of in another character. In the first KOTOR game, there is I can't remember her name. She's your mentor in the Sith Academy. I poisoned her hot dog, and it was delightfully Sith. She was very proud. But
no, wasn't it deliciously Sith?
Yeah. But anyway, if you can't actually redeem her. Obviously, when you redeem her, she goes to Dantooine, and then Dantooine gets nuked. So it's not really a happy ending. But anyway, if you talk to her, she talks about how she when I've escaped slavery. I hate slavery. I'm going to, one of these days, once I have enough power, once I amass enough dark side energy, I'm going to do something about slavery, anytime now.
That sounds like another Star Wars character.
Yeah, once I'm strong enough, you're never going to be strong enough. You have that addiction. You're never going to be ready. You're turtling. You're going to use up every mineral on the map, and then they're going to hit you. It's basic StarCraft, man.
Right, basic StarCraft.
But Kreia, okay, the dark side consumed me. I let it. I knew what the dark side was, and I still let it happen. It's almost like the Force doesn't want me to master it. It has a will of its own. It's constantly coming up with these bullshit prophecies. It keeps influencing subtly everyone in the galaxy to achieve some sort of cosmic balance, and it doesn't care how many people it kills to do so. And then she starts reflecting on everything in her life, everything she's worked for. everything she's done, what was her? What was the Force? Does she have any free will at all in this universe? At least, did she have any free will until she was cut off from the Force's influence and allowed to see the universe from a new perspective? And basically, that's where she achieves her version of synthesis. Thesis, antithesis, antithesis, thesis, synthesis. She's not a middle-of-the-road person. She has her own philosophy that's kind of a mold of the light and the dark side, but she doesn't, like, she's not gray, really. I don't like that word. There's not really a word for what she is, but she's not like a centrist, really.
She's not a reasonable
she
centrist.
Has principles. Right. But that's basically Kreia's abject horror, and that basically defines her motivation throughout the rest of her life. Because, like, think about it. When she thinks about the one thing she kind of has a soft spot for was, theoretically, relationships. She loved Usanus, probably. She probably has feelings for Handmaiden, in a way. She probably thought, I'm not going to, like, she can't be with me, obviously. I'm going to be off doing weird things.
Right.
And then she thinks, wait a minute. The Force lives strong in the bloodline of others who are strong in the Force. Did the Force make me a goddamn broodmare for some prophecy down the line? What's it going to do to Handmaiden? Think, like, when you play a male exile, there's a lot of fun mom dialogue when you have potential girlfriends on board, like, not good for you. And the best line in the game is, just because I saved her doesn't mean I was going to go charging up her boarding ramp. With visas, do not mate with her. It would breed difficulties. Mom, but then you think about it another way. Look, if you have a baby, God only knows what the Force is going to do to that poor thing. If you think about it in that way, it really... it adds a whole other layer to everything Kreia does, because she's paranoid.
Right.
Everything in the universe is out to not just get her, everything she could conceivably care about. So she's constantly balancing whether what she is doing is rational, what you are doing is rational. When you help people, is that you or is that the Force? Think about that. Does this really benefit you in any way? Is this rational? Is this reasonable? Is this logical? Or is this the Force? And that's kind of the basis of her philosophy. You can't trust the Force. You can't live free. You need to constantly be doubting yourself. But the reason she seeks you out is because she remembers that there was one other Jedi at Malachor 5 that survived and didn't follow Darth Revan. Two of them she's on the outs with. One of them, yeah, I can do some stuff with this guy. And she actually she helps. Together you rekindle your connection to the Force, but you're never actually a part of it. You're always going to be free of the Force's will. You can use it as one wields a poison, in her words, which she admits might just be a rationalization. Look, yeah, maybe I am dependent on Medicaid. Maybe I am a hypocrite. I don't know. I'm an old woman. Maybe I'm Ayn Rand. But it's what I love about her character so much.
Right.
God, it's just, I've hit a wall now.
So, and I don't remember. The difficulty is I need to play KOTOR 2 again.
It's like there's so like it's hard. Like if you don't take Kreia with you through all these the story of Kreia is told through random moments, and not even like dialogue but tone.
And Avalon's a genius. He really is.
Really is.
He really is. And
like I love every one of Kreia has so many lines of dialogue that just feel like Buddhist koans.
Right.
It is such a quiet thing to fall. Far more terrible is to admit it is such a good line.
Yeah, that is. Oh, that's a good line. And the similarities between her and the boss, I've never thought about that. Because my big thing with the boss is that's the first boss in a game where I had to pause because I could not bring myself to kill her. I couldn't. Snake, because your character doesn't want to kill her.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to do it. Like, Snake spends the entire game because... And the line from the poem you said,
to serve the ages, to betray it.
Basically, that was the boss's whole thing. I have to be this person, and you
Have to
stop me. And it just, he doesn't fucking want to.
Yeah.
He doesn't like. In fact, every other Metal Gear Solid game featuring Big Boss after that is literally him being like, "Hey, you know what, America? Fuck you!" Like, it's every other game. That's what because he's like, "You made me do this."
Yeah.
And he never. And I think that's what an interesting thing about Big Boss's character is he never understood. He never understood what the boss was trying to teach him.
Yeah.
He never did because of his love for her. Do you think that? First off, do you think that what Kreia was trying to impart to the exile was it the like? Well, because Kreia is not a villain or a hero, as you said. It's not that simple. But was what Kreia wanted what was right?
Not necessarily, but at the same time, she respects you when she is convinced that this is you talking, that this is you realizing your potential free of the Force. Like at the end of the game, she lays on like she's kind of like her relationship is not just mentor and student. It really feels like a toxic maternal relationship that is still a maternal relationship. Like she's like, I would have killed. She straight up says, I would have let the galaxy die to preserve you.
Right.
You are more beautiful than you know.
Right.
Because like it's so like there's like and that voice acting is so good because it's still Kreia, but you feel genuine affection from her. It is weird.
And another interesting thing about KOTOR 2 is Avalon didn't sit down and say, okay, well this is the character right here, this Kreia, because you have a similar character arc, not a similar one, but you'll get what I mean once I say it, with Atris.
Yeah.
So there's multiple characters with vested interest in the exile.
Yeah.
For different but also kind of similar reasons. And that's interesting because normally they would be like, okay, here's the old Crone character. Like, there she is. This is the one. That's an interesting thing about KOTOR 2 is the relationships that you have with these people feel very flawed and very real. There's very few characters because Star Wars is a story of binary morality.
Yeah.
This is not meant to. We're not supposed to scratch our heads after we watch a Star Wars film.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to be like, but did Vader have a point? We're not supposed to do that. But like Avalon was like, fuck that.
Like it's one thing to just subvert expectations and like, you expected that to happen. But KOTOR 2 takes another step beyond that. It says you didn't expect that to happen. Here's what really happened. Why did that happen? It doesn't just tear down. It doesn't tear the setting apart. It asks questions and gives you potential answers that you can fill in for yourself. But it asks questions that it's a good faith argument. It's going somewhere. Right. This isn't just shouting, "Ha ha! You're stupid for liking good and evil stories." Like, hey, what? Consider, politically, Kreia is obviously not a Marxist, but she does seem to have a sense of the dialectic, Hegelian dialectic, is specifically.
Right.
She sees
that's very good.
Talks about she's a historian, like Atris. She has seen galactic history repeat itself over and over again. We see, like Marx says, history repeats itself. Doesn't repeat itself. It rhymes, but it doesn't repeat itself, or repeats itself as like it as first as a tragedy, then as a farce, things like that. But
didn't he say that?
Yeah, that was Napoleon III. He was referring. That was his commentary.
On Napoleon III.
The first Napoleon was a tragedy. Napoleon III was a farce.
And Zizek has most recently used that in I believe that was the title of a recent writing.
Yeah,
first as tragedy, then as farce.
But basically, when Kreia looks at the galaxy, she sees the Jedi. Everything's relatively acceptable as it's not a perfect galaxy, but it works. And then
it's not the best galaxy, but it's the one we
inevitably some edgelord, for some reason or another, changes his lightsaber color, and billions of people die.
Grows his hair out.
And at the end of the day, what happens? The Jedi show back up, and you have the acceptable galaxy again. Nothing really changes. Now, in our world, Hegel says. Hegel talks about the thesis and the antithesis. The thesis is, okay, there's this king. He's an absolute shitheel, and he sucks. His rule results in an antithesis, which could be anything. It doesn't have to be a revolutionary peasant revolt. It could just be like some enlightened nobles wanting a few more, maybe a Magna Carta or something, and they fight. And regardless of who wins, the thesis is irreparably changed because he's going to have to adapt to the fact that the antithesis rose in the first place. So society advances. Less shitty king. Less shitty king to republic, republic to whatever comes after. It's a process of history. Things gradually get better. Sometimes take a step back, but as long as there is that conflict, what Marx refers to as class conflict, because that's how he sees the world, or saw the world. Sorry, he's not alive. But
he would be about 202 years old.
Now, this is not a new idea. It's a very old one. It's steeped in Western civilization, Western philosophy. Civilization, like socialism, is not some foreign ideal. It is a logical outgrowth of the Enlightenment, which was a logical outgrowth of a lot of Christian thinkers who saw history and the world as having a point. We're leading to something. Kingdom come.
Right.
It's and Kreia is basically a human like us who is looking at a history in a universe where that does not happen. That emphatically does not happen. For some reason, no matter how many times the Sith arise and challenge the Jedi do not change, and the Sith do not change. They just keep showing up, battling heads. Some force in the universe shouts into the living room like, "Hey man, you want me to put Star Wars in?" And a Star Wars story plays out the way every Star Wars story plays out. Nothing of value is learned, but the hero defeats the bad guy, and there's like a 5 minutes of praise. There's an indoor party.
KOTOR 1 happens.
Yeah. And
regardless of if you do Sith or Jedi.
But then the Force gets in the head. Now would be a really good time for a Star Wars. And Kreia is frustrated. Like, the Force has a will; it wants balance, and it doesn't. And it is not a benevolent force. It's not the Unitarian God. It's not subtly influencing thing for a benevolent force. It has some alien will, and it's killing us by the trillions to achieve that will. And it's important to note that if indeed Kreia is a Chane, which, given her, philosophy of conflict, hones you, it makes you better, it defines who you are, you find yourself wanting. Another great line. She is a dialectician, whether she knows it or not, right. Because that is Hegel.
Right, that is...
Like, society advances through conflicts that arise through inherent contradictions, and it pushes us forward as a species, as a civilization, except in Star Wars, because there is something gumming up the works, and that thing is the Force. It is literally a force acting to keep things as they always have been and always will be. And Kreia finds this completely antithetical to her view that if you fight and confront if you confront things, you'll be stronger for it, better for it. Things will have more value if you fought for them yourself. Only the Force exists, which completely negates that philosophy. So there's another layer of genuine horror to her realization that this is the way the universe works. And it's just not, like, there are a lot of people who would like, yeah, okay, well, whatever, just go with the flow, man. Kreia is not the kind of person who just goes with the flow. She is 100% human agency. If there is a tree in the way, don't walk around and push it over.
Right.
But you can't in this, like you can, but it won't be.
As much as she loves Hegel, she does not care much for Taoism.
No,
not a Taoist at all.
But as for whether she is good or bad, when you consider the events of KOTOR 2, she's a master manipulator. But the things she manipulates you into doing were pretty important in retrospect. Now, basically, it's kind of like a happy coincidence that everyone she has a beef with happens to be a toxic force in the galaxy.
Right. It's just
like, I got you to bring all the old Jedi farts together. so that they could be destroyed. I didn't necessarily want to kill them. Important to note, she doesn't want to kill the Jedi. She wants to prove them wrong. She wants to show them what she has learned and maybe get some validation from them. Belated validation from her old colleagues. Doesn't work, so she cuts them off from the Force to see how they like it. Mm-hmm. They don't like it. They just die. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, well, this is I was really hoping for, like, some personal validation here. I guess I'll go with Plan B and nuke the galaxy and kill the Force and let the people who survived that impact. Unless you want to stop me, I mean, that's up to you. You can chill out on the grass for a while. I'm gonna go talk to my daughter. Not daughter. Take me to Atris. I got things to do. By the way, Atris, she's dead set on training another generation of Jedi when she is still in the middle of something she doesn't really understand herself. And Kreia knows that all too well because she was in her shoes. She was a historian undergoing that transition. And, I trained some people when I was going through that period of my life, and they didn't turn out that well. Kreia, Atris really shouldn't. You should really take care of her. So she manipulates you into taking out Atris, and admittedly, you did need to face Atris because she is a huge obstacle in your life. If you're male, it's a huge part of your life. If you're female, she's still an old boss and kind of a friend. So, but then there's probably the most terrifying people in Star Wars history. Like, Sion and Nihilus are basically side characters, but at the same time, they're more forces of nature.
Right.
Like, Nihilus, at the time you meet him, is not really a human anymore. He's just this black hole that consumes life. He can kill a planet if he shows up to it. The only reason he can't kill you is because you don't have a connection to the Force at all. So when he tries to devour your connection to the Force, he winds up weakening himself and making himself vulnerable. You're it's interesting to think about, but if anyone but the Exile had tried to stop Nihilus, they would have failed. The Exile there would be no Star Wars universe if the Exile hadn't been manipulated into facing Nihilus.
Right.
And Sion, well, he would have taken a lot longer to kill the galaxy, but he would have done it.
He would have done it.
He's the little engine that could. But, and then once you finally kill all of them, you realize, okay, I've basically saved the Republic and defeated all the Sith Lords except for one because of Kreia's manipulation. And then Kreia, when you finally confront Sion, says, dude, you're not having a good time. Why are you here? Why am I here? Like, he just turns to dust and floats away.
Right.
And then you finally face Kreia and okay, here's what's going to happen. You're going to kill me. You're going to be completely free. Not only the Force, but everyone who's ever manipulated me, myself included, and probably the most of all, you need to face me. This is my last lesson as your teacher. I don't care what you do. I don't know what you're going to do, but I know you're going to do great things, kid.
Right.
It's a weird kind of pride she's showing for you when she's threatening to kill you.
Right.
But if you try to give her mercy, no, you will not show me mercy. I will break you before you do, because if she kills you in Malachor 5, your Force wound coupled with the wound of Malachor 5 itself will send that shockwave, that echo, that wound throughout the galaxy and slowly but surely kill the Force. And anyone connected to the Force strongly, especially Jedi and Sith, will probably die in the process. In fact, it would probably be in a post-apocalyptic setting, but the people who come after would be completely free of the Force's will. The Star Wars universe would be our universe. Things could change, advance. There would no longer be a Star Wars universe, no games. There'd be interesting things happening. It'd just be a monster. It would be through a monstrous act, basically. That's Plan B. Plan A is let the Exile kill her, and maybe she'll build something new from the ashes because she's still free of the Force. Well, canonically, Exile is female. I know.
Canonically, Exile is female?
Apparently, according to KOTOR. I don't have a problem with that. I like the male. I like the male's relationship with Atris. There is a weird. If you play as a female Exile, Sion has feelings for you, and it's kind of weird that Atris is older, but she looks fine. She's good looking. The unrequited love interest with her, okay, that works. Scion is a literal zombie, and you're trying, and it kind of feels awkward that you're like playing, you're role playing a girl, like, oh, forbidden love. Dude, I'm not like, this isn't like a blind girl in Frankenstein situation. I know exactly what's standing in front of me. And you like tried to, and I literally killed you like 5 times in the Sith Academy and you kept getting back up. This is not a good start to a relationship. Oh, my love for you is weakening me because it's not making me feel anger. I must kill you. It's an interesting, it's kind of interesting. Like, it's kind of like Han Har and Mira, where like, you saved my life. I'm never going to be free of you until you're dead. So get ready to die. It's kind of that. I like it. It's good. I just prefer the unrequited love interest with Atris. It makes that confrontation more compelling.
According to SWTOR, who's canonically the hero from KOTOR 1?
I think Lightside Revan. But I don't know. I've been corrected on that whenever I refer to the exile as he. Like actually, she has a name. Like, yeah.
What's the exile's name?
Mitra Surik, I think. Sulik. And I also know that she gets killed off because there's a prophecy. So Kreia was literally right. Kreia 100% confirmed to be in the right. If you let the Force live, it will kill you.
But that's expanded universe, no longer canon.
No, that's true.
It's Legends.
Okay.
It's Legends canon.
Okay. But I just,
Don's not bitter.
It just
okay. That's fine.
The Exile is one of my favorite characters. So yeah, I prefer construction character Exile who goes through some rough patches, but lives out the rest of his days.
I
with
really
Dex.
like
with Dexter.
I have literally had people ask me. People come up and ask me and say, like, you guys are doing this whole Midwest thing, which we're not doing this whole Midwest thing. This is literally who we are. Like,
I can't act another way. I tried to put a Boston accent on. It just turned into like some. It turned into like George Bush when he hadn't fully killed the New Englander in himself yet.
It isn't, and that isn't like a skateboarder. Like, this is who we are. It's like this is literally who we are.
I can't be anything else.
People ask me, and they say, "Why are you doing so much about KOTOR 2?" The Exile is a fucking Midwesterner.
Is canon.
He really is. Like,
look, he is just coasting through life. Absurd things keep happening.
He was this guy working at a construction site with everyone around him saying, "You could have done better, man.
Yeah,
you could have." And if you've ever grown up in the Midwest and wound up in labor, that's exactly what fucking happens.
You grow up, you go to college, you were promised, something, and then you wind up, at a
building seats for fucking Toyotas.
Or like, I mean,
that's what I do.
I literally worked at an oil drilling operation for a while, which is fine. I like being outside. Blue racer snakes are fucking dicks, and then
they're terrifying.
And then I worked at a factory for a while, and did a bunch of odd jobs, contract work. And then now I work very, very low wage, but I'm in an air conditioned office. And I have a lot of fun at work, so it ended up working out. The Exile story, basically.
That's the thing. Is the Exile is the millennial Midwesterner? He really is.
Or I guess if we're gonna go by SWTOR, I'm eventually just going to get in a truck and like drive off to find Revan, because apparently he and I were. Even though I that's my big problem with SWTOR, because I really like the subtle hints that you and Revan kept butting heads.
Right.
And he maneuvers you into a suicide situation.
Right.
But yeah. Anyway, that is why Kreia is important.
I mean,
she is the mouthpiece for KOTOR 2's critique of the Star Wars universe. There's something wrong with it.
And that's what KOTOR 2 is. KOTOR 2 is a criticism of Star Wars, and as we said in the original KOTOR 2 podcast, Chris Avalon does not hate Star Wars.
Absolutely
you critique what you love.
You do not.
Das Kapital was a critique of capitalism.
Yeah, he socialism was literally born of French politics, German philosophy, and British economics.
Right.
Those were all his inspirations. He did not hate Ricardo or Smith, far from it.
Right.
Smith's criticisms of capitalism laid the foundation for Marx.
Right.
He's like, Smith asked questions. Where are we going? That's a good question. Let's figure it out.
The Wealth of Nations, by the way, was not the capitalist handbook. It was a criticism of capitalism.
Like, there are good things happening, but there's some contradictions here.
Right.
And those contradictions keep coming up for some reason.
So
now, obviously, Marx is now outdated, and we need to replace it with some new. But that perspective is still valuable. So
absolutely,
just like any new perspective of the Star Wars universe can help you enjoy that universe better.
I will say, I will say, stories like KOTOR 2 are best kept out of the films. I'll say that.
Probably, yeah.
Keep the films the way they are. KOTOR 2, but the thing is, KOTOR 2 is a Star Wars anomaly. There are no other books that cover this. There are no comics that cover this. There's just nothing else covers the idea of the Force as doing something wrong, or even the Force as a living entity. These are all very uniquely KOTOR 2. Not even KOTOR 1, not even SWOTOR. All the stuff we established about the Force in KOTOR 2, SWOTOR does not revisit. Absolutely not. Because it was an MMO where people just wanted to play a Jedi.
Yeah.
Or a Sith.
It's basically like when people feel alienated from capitalism. It's like you lose your sense of agency because you're a consumer. You have to make these rational decisions, even if there's no way for you to make those decisions because you're being kept from the resources to make those decisions. And gradually capitalism will just erode away all the things that you find you take value in, religion, faith, culture. It gets commodified, ground down, individualized, and marketed as nothing. That feeling of alienation that drives people to adopt certain radical views online nowadays, they're valid concerns, but since we're not being educated to question capitalism in a constructive way, they're not questioning capitalism, they're questioning a force they have no perception of. A force.
Force.
With its own invisible hand at work.
Oh, God. Going back to Kreia as Ayn Rand.
You don't understand, Exile. If we do not stop this now, they will be saying happy holidays for all eternity. Because it is simply good business, and business has no care in the world for our traditional values. You see, millennials don't care, and since millennials are now aging into a consumer demographic, our values, everything we fought so hard politically for, it doesn't matter anymore. Exile, something has to be like Kreia, you're old. You should die. Kreia, you need to. Yeah, you know what? I am the generation you have to destroy to become what you were born to be. Millennial P Exile.
And so Kreia is now the boomer.
Yes, the good boomer, because at the end of the day, she knows what she is.
She understands. Guys, I need to follow my own advice here, but go play KOTOR 2.
It's such a good. I've literally played it 3 times this year, and actually, that might be the game. That's the game I play this year. I don't play that many games. I basically just keep playing KOTOR 2. This is a fun game. I'm not gonna lie, but I can watch this on YouTube. I can experience KOTOR 2.
I do want to remind you: do not watch a Let's Play of KOTOR 2. Play it. Find your options
because this is a personal story, your story,
right? It's and out of all the moral choice games, I think KOTOR 2 really. I think the Exile is more you than any other of those characters that you're given. Not the Warden, not Shepard, certainly not Shepard. The Exile, I think, is
the great part about it is that you generally every choice seems to have a corollary because you make the choice and then Kreia berates you for it, and you have the option to defend yourself. Why did you do that? And you could look, it makes reasonable sense. Look, there is a logic to what I am doing here, Kreia, and she will step back if you can convince her that way. And that's really cool because it's not like Morrigan, like, goody two shoes over here. Like,
God, yeah.
Morrigan, here's a silver mirror. Have fun. I also brought you a sweater. No reason.
No reason.
I just thought you'd like it. But Kreia, she has...
Kreia's a character.
She has her own belief system.
Yeah.
You need to figure out in order to manipulate her, manipulate the manipulator, get through life with her. But you can still learn from her. You don't have to agree with someone to learn from them.
Absolutely.
And whatever you can say, you can say about Kreia, when she does things, when she says things, when she puts questions to you, they're good faith questions.
Absolutely.
They are deeply held beliefs. She's trying to get you to think. Always trying to get you to think.
She wants answers when she's asking these questions.
Like, she may not like those answers, but she will respect that at least she thinks you're the one making them, not the Force.
Right.
But anyway, I think that's really... There's a lot of ink that's been spilled on Kreia for good reason, not just in writing, but in analysis. Probably better analysis than this. But, we're Midwesterners, so we're seeing Kreia. We want you to know she's just as much a Hoosier as she is a Connecticut person.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't have to be a coastal elite to appreciate this fine wine.
No, she's...
You can,
we all know Kreia's.
Yeah.
We all know Kreia's.
We all know Kreia's.
Guys, I think that's all we have for Kreia.
That's all we need.
Who are we doing next?
She does still have Scion and Nihilus, and there is that one, beggar. That was a joke. I don't know. I know we're scraping the bottom of the barrel, but I love this game. All the characters have a reason to be in the story.
I will probably be trying to convince you for a Nihilus one. I also want.
That wouldn't need too much.
I also would want Nihilus from Mass Effect. A deep dive of Nihilus from Mass Effect.
That's gonna happen.
I think that's.
You don't have to. He's forever in our hearts.
Nothing but respect for my Turian heroes.
Kreia's is a story of betrayal. She was betrayed by the Jedi. She was betrayed by the Sith. She was betrayed by the very universe that bore her. And she betrayed in turn. She is... The galaxy needs its betrayers. Nihilus didn't learn that when he needed to. It was his tragic flaw. He has been betrayed, and he will never betray in turn. He will never serve the age by betraying it the way Saren did. Nihilus. Saren. Situation's bad. Don't worry. I've got it under control.
So, guys, if you are chomping at the bit, waiting for another KOTOR 2 deep dive,
I want to meet our adoring fan. He's out there.
The Coliseum adoring fan from Oblivion.
You're going to meet him leaving the parking lot of your job one day, and it's literally just going to be that guy.
Do us a favor, like the video if you did like it. Don't lie. And
if you have a dislike, subscribe. If you smash that dislike button, subscribe, and write us a thesis. Because a thesis is how we grow. If you deconstruct our arguments and replace them with something the way KOTOR does, and tell your friends, get all of your friends to like or dislike and subscribe, and write their theses, because that's what the YouTube comment section is for. It's being tragically misused. It's there for a reason.
And if you do subscribe, hit the bell so you can know when we're going to make another
when we
argument.
are saying the wrong thing, and you need to correct us because someone is being wrong on the internet, and that will not stand.
And speaking of, could you hand me that art right there, Don?
Oh, there's a pen.
There's a pen.
And there's Indiana Auto Trader.
Indiana Auto Trader.
There's also this. There's a steak knife. Oh, and this, I guess you.
Oh, and
if you feel like it.
Oh, hey, look at that. We wrote a book, and
you're gonna have to read that and review it and deconstruct it. Write another book.
This is our thesis.
This is how academics work. This is how all life works. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis.
And this only covers the 90s, so we're not going to cover KOTOR 2 in this one. But look forward to when we do, and you won't be ready for the one where we cover KOTOR 2 if you don't read this one first.
This is not some collection of game reviews. This is a collection of stories about how games, work their way into the Midwest. Kind of like how meth worked its way into the Midwest, but happier.
But in some case.
Yeah.
It's available on Amazon. It is
just don't buy it when there is a strike because solidarity.
Absolutely.
We can wait.
We can wait. There's not a strike right now. Go for it. I think that's it from me. And
yeah, I got things I could be doing. Right. Oh, it's dark. Never mind. I'm going to go to sleep.
We're probably going to play Smash Brothers.
Yeah, we're going to do that.
We're absolutely
because
gonna play Smash
conflict
Brothers.
causes us to grow because we do not live in a world with the Force. There is no all-seeing power keeping us from growing.
Before Smash Brothers, interesting fact, I couldn't stand Don and he couldn't stand me. We are friends because of Smash Brothers.
Yeah, there's no synthesis coming yet. It's coming though.
It's coming.
It's coming.
We got to play a few more rounds. So
the fourth character literally named Synthesis.
Oh my God, the Exile for Smash. Exile for Smash.
You got me. I'm sold. We have achieved synthesis. Synthesis achieved.
So we're gonna go play Smash Brothers. We'll see you guys later.
Bye bye.